Welcome back, everyone, to Punch Card Investing. Unfortunately, again, Jack Duffley couldn't join us, so you've got probably the fifth best host out of the five of us hosting, but no one else wanted to. And we're here to talk Micron, which should be an interesting one. So I think the game plan here is I'm essentially going to hand it over to Brad in a second to tell us a little bit about Micron, why he's interested in it. I believe it's a relatively substantial position for Brad. And then we're going to grill him on it, which should be fun. So if you've got hard Micron questions for us, put them in the chat. And if you've got any non-Micron questions, definitely pop them in the chat as well. And once we get through the Micron discussion, we will answer whatever kind of questions are on your mind, I guess. So, Brad, tell us about all things Micron.
Boy, that was a much faster intro than what Jack would have given.
Straight to the point.
Yeah, you really get there.
The like button, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Hit like, subscribe to ShareSite. We get a great commission on that. Much appreciated because we don't make much off AdSense here, especially when we split it between five of us. So that's appreciated. It's a very good tool.
Cool. Yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about Micron. I got interested. I think I really started paying attention to Mohnish Pabrai in 2018. That's kind of when I came across him on YouTube. And I followed him into Fiat, which is now Stellantis, and Micron. So it was a clone. And it was fascinating to see Pabrai and Liyue both owning Micron. Now, I had no idea that Charlie Munger had instructed Liyue and Mohnish Pabrai to have lunch once a month. But I guess during one of those lunches, Pabrai pitched Micron to Liyue. And I guess the pitch was compelling enough. Liyue did some work and bought in as well. And it's his largest, I believe it's his largest U.S. holding for Liyue and Mohnish Pabrai. So that got me very interested. In 2020, third quarter 2020, Andrew Rosenblum wrote up Micron. He took a stake in it as well. And that's a really good write-up. It's like 5 or 6 pages. He doesn't have those write-ups on the website anymore, I think, ever since restructuring his fund. But if you guys reach out to me on Twitter, I can get you a copy of that write-up on Micron from Andrew Rosenblum. So what does Micron do? They make memory chips, so DRAM and NAND. Now, the memory industry used to be terrible. It used to be incredibly cyclical. There were many players, very boom and bust. During the bust times, these companies would just be bleeding cash. It's become much better over the last 10 years. There's only 3 big players in DRAM, which is where the majority of Micron's revenue comes. 2 of them, SK Hynix and Samsung, and then Micron. So only one of them is US based. And one of the things that really jumped out at me from Andrew Rosenblum's write-up is this idea of the information age. So I'll just read a snippet from it. He talks about how productivity, the first big improvement in human productivity came from the agricultural revolution, which allowed us to shift from hunting and gathering, which took a lot of time and energy, into highly productive farming and the division of labor. The second wave of productivity came from the Industrial Revolution, which harnessed machines to perform repetitive tasks on our behalf. Now we're in the third wave of human productivity, the information age. And he says, like the machines of the Industrial Revolution, silicon chips are now automating and simplifying information-driven tasks. So whenever Pabrai talks about Micron, he talks about it as really having a tax on every data center built. Whenever Amazon goes and builds a data center, or Microsoft or Google go and build a data center, 30% of the total cost of those data centers go to the memory guys. which include Micron. So it's a pretty strong position to be in for Micron. There's very high barriers to entry. It takes a lot of money to set up one of these memory chip plants. And not only that, it takes a lot of IP. I just put up a tweet today. Micron has like 50,000 patents as of last year. They just crossed that threshold. So that compounding, in a sense, of intellectual property around how to actually build these things is very difficult for a competitor to come in and catch up, in a sense. Another big selling point for Pabrai was the CEO. So the CEO, the current CEO, took the reins in 2017, Sanjay. And at that time, Micron was a couple years behind in technology compared to Samsung or Hynix. Recently, they're about 6 months ahead, okay? And they're also the low-cost producer. So it's been a massive shift in terms of who the top player is in the DRAM space from 2017 to today, just under that current CEO. So that was actually unexpected, I think, by both Pabrai and Liyue, that shift could happen so quickly. And then in terms of big tailwinds, very, very memory intensive sectors, you've got cloud, you've got 5G, artificial intelligence, the metaverse, autonomous vehicles. There are very robust tailwinds for the memory space. So that's a few kind of ideas from me about what makes Micron a compelling investment.
Frank or Karan, you guys got any initial questions? I've got a few, but I'll let you guys go first.
You go ahead, Tom. I got nothing that stands out yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask a couple of things, Brad. So on the technology side of it, you say they were behind, but they're now ahead. Is there anything particularly we can look at to measure that, or like how do you get to that assessment?
Right. Yeah, let me just, I wrote a note about that.
I guess, yeah, that's sort of one of the challenges with Micron is I don't know a whole lot about the process of making chips or what makes one better than the other. Is it paying attention to what industry analysts are saying, or?
Yeah, it's not a 6-inch bar in terms of understanding the company, and that's something Rosenblum pointed out as well. It's very techy. Like you've got to really get in the weeds and understand. I'm sure with Pabrai, it helps having a computer engineering background. But a lot of that is just beyond me as well. Like I said, this really started as a clone, and I've liked what I've seen as it's unfolded. So I've just kind of kept it in the coffee can, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, on that level, I don't have that kind of technical understanding of how the industry is changing over the last 5 years and why, really at a core level, why Micron is in the lead. I think, it's largely about acquiring talent, right? Attracting the best engineers to stay ahead of the curve.
I think to add on to that also, a lot of people keep saying that, China is going to start supplying and that'll impact Micron.
Right.
But there's that whole point about foundries taking 2 or 3 years up to build, and what's it, like a $5 billion investment that's required. And a lot of people think that might not impact as much because it's an oligopoly at this point, and it's unlikely that any of the players would disrupt, the space. So I think that also is a factor. At least that's something I've come across. Yeah.
I think for China in particular, they also want to develop their own DRAM and everything, so they're not restricted to buying from Micron or the US, so they can create their own internal sources, I guess, of memory chips. But I think eventually they're just like everything else. They will become a relatively good player, big player in the game. But again, that's a bit beyond my understanding, and how far away that actually is a bit unknowable for me.
Yeah,
And even the use of patents, it doesn't make sense. Like, how is China, the suppliers, how are they going to replicate the decades of patents that Micron has?
Right.
The 50,000 patents that Brad mentioned.
Yeah, and this is something I can't remember his name. He's in South Africa, I believe. He was a guest on Value Investor TV. And he's a big investor in Micron. I think he just runs his own account, but he talks a lot about China and what his thoughts are on, the risk that China poses, kind of catching up technologically, and he thinks it's a long shot. But
was it Sunil or was it someone else?
Sunil.
So how do you think about the cyclicality of it, and really being somewhat of a commodity business in a sense? They're really dependent on what people are willing to pay for DRAM and NAND and everything else. How do you wrap around that when it comes to forecasting what the next 5 years looks like? Because I guess part of the sell-off right now is because of the pricing. They're able to charge less people. There's less consumer spending going on overall. So some of the ways they make money is through things like technology, gaming, and all those things selling. But that's going to slow down, assumably, over the next few years. So how do you go about predicting the future for Micron?
Yeah, I think my big answer to that is looking at the latest trough for Micron, what the free cash flow was, and they were able to remain positive, I think, for the first time in the life of the company in the most recent, bottom of the cycle. And I think that just speaks to, being one of three major players, there's more kind of price rationality. And you've got all these tailwinds I mentioned as well. It is a commodity product, but when you're the low-cost producer and you're in an oligopoly where there is some rationality in terms of supply, I think it's just less unpredictable than it used to be. And certainly, I think the reason it's cheap is because people don't like the cyclicality, right? That uncertainty. But I think it's a lot better than it used to be.
So, Brad, do you think the spot price and the earnings are diverging? Is that what you're saying? As in whether people think spot price is going to go versus the earnings that Micron is able to sustain. Are you saying there's a divergence there?
I think there is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it might be interesting. I've just pulled up some of the long-term financial results on Ticker. I can share here just so people can get a feel for what that cyclicality actually looks like. Hopefully you can see that. So basically I've just got the revenue, gross profit, and net income for the past several years. So you can see earnings. Well, all three of those figures seems to bounce around quite a lot, but I guess it's generally growing long term. And I guess this year is kind of what you're getting at here, Brad, where they sort of bottomed out and still had positive net income in 2020.
Yep.
To show that even further, Tom, could you just pull up the gross margins and just see how?
Yeah, what are the gross profit margins? Because
it's pretty insane how much they fluctuate, and a big reason why it's too cyclical for me to kind of feel comfortable with. And it's not to say that it can't do well, but with margins moving around that much, and I guess you could say the trend is that these margins are getting higher for now, but yeah. And again, not knowing the industry and the business, it's hard to know why those margins are even cyclical to me. But these are the reasons why I start to pass pretty quickly on a Micron.
Yeah, it seems like from listening to the Pabrai stuff that I've seen, and I think Brad touched on it, it seems like there used to be a lot of sort of technical innovation in the space, like is it Moore's law, where there's a constant improvement in processing power and so on. So a company would sort of I guess tool out a factory to produce a certain type of memory chip, that at the time was really advanced and they could sell for great margins, and then all of a sudden a competitor comes in with a much better product, and you've got all this inventory that you can sell for, you are kind of forced to sell it for less than it cost you to produce. So I think that constant technological improvement was a big issue that kind of drove the cyclicality, but I don't know, perhaps we're over that hurdle now that there's just 3 players.
Right. And it seems like that those improvements are slowing. There's, they're coming up to a limit in terms of how much they can fit in a area of chip. So
yeah. And actually Rohan just said the same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Cyclicality is reducing due to limiting of Moore's law, reduction in transistors per chip. There you go.
So how does a company like Micron grow? This comes from having little understanding. Obviously, it's a very consolidated market with 3 big players taking up 90% plus of the market. So how does it grow? Is it just organic growth and the consumer demand building up through these technological products that need these chips, or how else can they grow?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the main thing is much more demand in terms of applications that just require a lot more memory.
Like self-driving stuff, right?
Yeah, self-driving stuff. Yeah.
VR and AR, I think, too.
Yep, that too. There's a lot of sectors all coming together that are kind of growing exponentially. So there's that just massive tailwind for the memory industry. Assuming someone doesn't come and invent something that completely displaces the current technology, which I do see as a risk. But I don't know how to gauge how likely that is.
Do you guys know much about the buybacks that Micron has been doing, or what they plan on doing in terms of returning money to shareholders?
Yeah, I thought they had a pretty robust buyback plan in place. I can't come up with the number offhand, but I think that was a significant part of the thesis in terms of how they were going to be creating value for shareholders.
Well, the most recent buyback, I guess comparing it to today's market cap, was about a 3% buyback yield. Of course, it hasn't been as cheap over the past 12 months, so it's not exactly that much, but it is a significant amount of buyback if they continue that amount at least.
Yeah.
And can you talk us through some of your thoughts on valuation with this one, Brad? I mean, one of the things is like, even with some cyclicality, obviously, if you can get it at a low enough price, it potentially still makes sense.
Yeah. I put something together, it was like 6 months ago or something, where it looked like, I can't remember, but I was looking at free cash flow, 2025 estimate of free cash flow. And then with, I think, like a 10 multiple on that, it looked like there was about a $200 per share price estimate, which would be a 4x in 3 years. So something along those lines.
Nice.
From current prices.
And what was that? Sorry, bro.
From current prices. It's obviously down a bit recently.
Yeah, and the cost basis for Pabrai and Liyue is still lower than where it's at now, or are we getting?
Oh yeah, I think Pabrai is maybe upper 30s, maybe 38. I thought Liyue got in a little bit later, maybe in the low 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Was my estimate for those.
Yeah. And
it doesn't matter, right? 38, 40, as long as it goes to 200.
Yeah.
As long as it goes to 200, we'll be fine.
That's right.
Yeah. Brad, are you the only one here that owns Micron?
I think so.
Frank and Karan, have you guys got Micron?
Definitely
I
not.
don't think I understand. My biggest question is like the demand side. I get the supply side constraints. Makes sense. oligopoly, all that is great. Demand side, I don't know, I just can't get my head around it, because what if there's some sort of thing which is able to, compress data more efficiently, reduce the need for memory? Like that's at least for me, it's something I can't get my head around. So, so no.
There's a lot I can't get my head around on this. I think my simple reason for a pass on Micron is I'm just too dumb to understand it. I literally don't know what a memory chip is like. So I don't know how I could be comfortable understanding the business when I don't understand the actual products themselves and what it could look like to, I guess, disrupt that in the future or anything. Too hard basket for me very quickly, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah. Brad, have you done any work to try and get this sort of more squarely in your circle of competence, or is this just a kind of a pure clone for you?
No, I mean, I haven't added since I bought it back in, I think it was 2019, maybe when I think it's the longest stock in my portfolio now. I'm just kind of hanging on. So no, I haven't done an engineering deep dive on the technology.
Yeah. Fair enough. Is it something you would consider adding more to if it got back down to your cost basis, or you're pretty comfortable with the current?
No, I think I'm comfortable with what I've got on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And on the, I guess on the sell side, I mean, if Pabrai turns out to be wrong about slowing technical improvement, or
sure,
competitors are less rational than he thinks they might be, is there anything that you're kind of looking out for there that would cause you to reassess the Micron position, or is it again just kind of keeping an eye on what Pabrai and Liyue are doing?
Yeah, I think how it would go if I see Liyue or Pabrai exit, or even Rosenblum, if I see he's exited for whatever reason, I'd want to understand as best I can why that happened. Fortunately, Pabrai usually does a post-mortem on things like this, so we can kind of get a sense for what he's thinking, like he did with Seritage, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, I don't see doing anything with the position until something like that happens, and then it wouldn't be an automatic sell. I would really try to figure out, okay, does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Nice. Should we maybe take some questions on Micron? Are you seeing any there, Brad, that jump out to you that you want to have a crack at?
Well, I think there's a few people even that know more about Micron than I do in the comments, which is great. Like there's a lot more weighing in than particular questions.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pull up the one by Eunice at 12:53 my time? Whatever that makes it for you. I think that's a pretty good question. To be a low-cost producer when memory manufacturing cost is nearly 40% higher. Again, that's something I haven't fact-checked. I'll take his word for that. But how do they become a low-cost provider over someone like a Samsung?
It's fake news. No, I don't know.
Well,
and sorry, could I just check, are they the low-cost provider in all the different types of memory chips, or is it just DRAM specifically?
Yeah, well, the one I was focusing on was DRAM.
Which is 70% of their revenues or so, roughly?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I haven't broken out the cost. It would be interesting to see, what is the labor cost involved in producing a chip versus, just the automation. I imagine these are highly automated systems in terms of putting these things together. But I'm interested in that question now. Eunice, by the way, is the guy who made a video on
Is that insurance company?
Yeah, the insurance company in Turkey that Pabrai bought. So what's up, Eunice? Good to see you here. He also goes to UW-Madison, which is my alma mater. So there's some overlap here. But nice. it is a great question, something I'd like to understand better myself.
Brad, are you planning on having Sunil come by on the show? The
Sunil,
same way you, yeah.
the same way what?
You had, who was that Facebook?
Divya Narendra.
Yeah.
Divya, yeah.
Divya. I haven't really chatted with Sunil. I think he pinged me. I think he sent me an email. I've pinged him on Twitter and I didn't hear back from him. So I think we've missed each other a few times. But yeah, I could see having a chat with Sunil. That'd be fun. Great question, Eunice. I like it.
Another question I had is about the capital expenditures, which are pretty significant. Even looking at the most recent years, 10 billion, 11 billion almost in CapEx versus 15 billion cash from operations. How much of that is growth? How much of that is maintenance? Is that something they're going to have to keep bumping up every single year, or can that flatten out over time?
I don't know exactly growth versus maintenance, but I do think it's just the nature of the industry that it's high CapEx. There's just a lot of capital required to keep up with the latest technology, to expand, the manufacturing, all that stuff. So I think it's just part of the business model that you've got to build that in.
Yeah, and this
Yeah,
is
it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, there you go. Over time, what the CapEx has looked like. That's free cash flow.
yeah.
If you just pull up the cash from operations and CapEx, Tom, just to compare how that looks each year.
There you go.
Yeah. So it was very cyclical, right? Now it's been pretty heavy for the last, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Not
8.8
growing,
billion.
right? But substantial.
Yeah, it seems to be in the 8 to 10 billion range.
Yeah.
I mean, cash from operations is greater than that each year, but it's a big chunk of the cash flow for sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions you want to go for?
It's a difficult business to figure out, I think. At least for most people who aren't, at the level where they completely get chips and the technology behind it.
Yeah, let's pull up from Tejas, maybe. Hopefully I'm not butchering that.
Which questions or which time is it?
It's near the bottom, 8 p.m. The 4th, yeah.
This one?
Yeah, he has mentioned that Micron, it's not one of these hold forever long-term compounder stocks. I think the main thing Pabrai is watching is for technological innovations that could disrupt Micron. I think that's the big thing he's looking out for. So I don't know that it's a price that he's looking to sell out at. I think it's a competitive advantage type situation that he wants to make sure that that's being maintained.
So who are the customers of Micron? Is it the Apples and the Googles of the Microsofts of the world, or what's that kind of customer base look like?
Well, I mentioned the data centers. So you've got Amazon, you've got Microsoft, Google, the auto manufacturers, right, that are dealing heavily in autonomous vehicles, Apple, computer manufacturers. It's quite a broad range. But it would be interesting to see in terms of revenue. I haven't looked at this recently. Who the biggest customers are and how big they are. What are the biggest 5 in terms of revenue? That would be interesting.
I think Micron is also very far from Mohnish's spawner framework and everything that he was talking about.
Yeah, that was pre-spawner framework for sure. Probably another reason it's not a buy and hold forever. doesn't have that upside optionality that the spawners would have.
Here's a good one for you, Brad. Would Mohnish put all his Micron stake in races if he could?
Well, I think he'd prefer to pull it from somewhere else other than Micron. Yeah, I don't know.
I think a better question would be would he put it into process? Pull from Micron, put it into process.
We need to get Mohnish on here one of these days, and he can just tell us.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
And we need to say, all right, it's okay if you talk about your portfolio just today, Mohnish. It'll be
yeah. We won't tell anyone.
No.
I think that question does kind of touch on one that came up earlier in the stream as well. Kind of saying they would pass on Micron just because there's better ideas out there. And I think that's kind of where I sit. It obviously seems very cheap. It's appealing that you have Pabrai and Liyue buying at similar prices, and presumably it's grown and it's a better business since they purchased. So it seems interesting for a lot of reasons, but just how complicated it is and the other opportunities out there, I think, at least that's where I sit on why it's an easy pass.
Mm-hmm. It's a very logical argument there, Frank. I like that.
I feel like it's worth digging into, trying to understand, trying to expand the circle of competence, which is very limited. I mean, especially because it's again gotten a bit cheap, so it's interesting. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the price multiples at the moment. EV to EBIT is down to like 5 times, but again, it's very cyclical, so you have to attempt to normalize that. And I don't really know what would be in their book value. That's probably something I'd have to dig into more. But they are currently trading at, where are we? Currently trading at about 1.3 times book, which is, it hasn't been that low since like 2016. It got all the way down to like 0.3 times book in the financial crisis, though. So I'm not sure whether that's a meaningful kind of reference point or not, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different industry back then.
I think that's when Seth Klarman was buying into it, right? Well, when was
that long ago? I thought it was more recently. I think he's been in and out though for a while. Yeah. But I've seen 1 to 3 is kind of typically where it fluctuates, 1 to 3 times book.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's at the bottom end of that range.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it topped out. I should just share my screen here so you can actually see what I'm looking at.
Yeah, well, what is Tom looking at right now? He keeps talking, but I don't know.
He's just making up numbers. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. So this price to book over the last several years. So it's gone through huge cycles, bottomed out 0.2 times book in the financial crisis, got up to north of 3.5, and then has bounced around between 1 and 3, I guess.
Yeah.
And when was Pabrai buying? That was late 2019, right?
I think it was 2018, actually.
2018. So late 2018 is about 1.2 times book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd have to dig into that. I don't know if they have a lot of intangibles, or it would be like the same if there was a technological problem and all that book value was a bunch of inventory that's now basically worthless. That wouldn't be that interesting. That's what happened back in the financial crisis days. I don't know.
Yeah, and ADI, our good friend Justin, points out that Liyue, while he does have a position, I want to see how big it is in Dataroma here real quick here. Because Liyue's total AUM, according to Advisor Info, is like 18 billion. So Micron, I mean, what is it? Almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
So 1/18 of the portfolio. So is that 6%, something like that?
Yeah. It's the biggest public position that we can see now, though, right?
Can we see BYD somewhere, maybe in ticker?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting tangent because I put a tweet up briefly and then ended up deleting it. But BYD doesn't show on ticker anymore.
Oh,
But apparently someone replied to that tweet and was looking at investor relations on BYD's pages, and apparently there's been no transactions, so I'm not sure why it's dropped off. But
okay.
outside of that, Micron's the biggest position on there.
I think there's a Chinese bank, and I don't know the name of it, that might be a larger position that you can see through the Chinese filings.
Postal Savings Bank of China.
Maybe that one. I'm not sure the exact size of that, but from memory, that was pretty large.
Did you guys see that Liyue put a job ad on LinkedIn the other week?
I saw that tweet about it.
Yeah, same. I wonder how many applications he got for that. It would have been crazy, I would think.
I can't believe he would advertise that way. It seems insane.
Yeah, you'd think he'd be the type of guy that would just like know someone.
Right.
Or he probably constantly has MBA students reaching out to him, surely.
Well, just through word of mouth, like he has access to the best investors in the world. You'd think he could come across someone.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
There's a few questions about Seritage. Do we want to say anything about that, as it's around $5 per share in our punch card portfolio?
You're taking us to the painful places, Brad.
Oh,
but we'll talk about it.
It just keeps getting delayed, right? That judgment thing keeps getting delayed.
Yeah, it's there was supposedly there was meant to. So this is to do with the whole whole sort of Sears lawsuit about, Sears shareholders effectively got ripped off when I was going to say Micron, but when Seritage was spun out. And I don't know, if you look at a stock chart, if you look at a stock chart, it probably doesn't seem that way. But yeah, the hearings and things seem to keep getting pushed out. Is it Eric Moore, the guy that is always posting about this stuff?
Might be a pseudonym. I don't know what his real name is.
Yeah, maybe. Thinks
we don't know if he's
Sears and Seritage is worth a lot. He seems to think that there'll be a conclusion on that this month, but who knows? We've been waiting for a conclusion on that for a while. But as far as the fundamentals with the value of the real estate, I mean, there are some very real headwinds, like with rising interest rates and inflation. I mean, real estate is typically an asset that does okay through inflation, but rising interest rates and decreasing cap rates as a result would be a concern for Seritage. But they've been awfully quiet. We got this big announcement about a potential transaction, and not much has come along.
I think the only appeal to me in Seritage now would be is from a liquidation sense. If I knew they were going to liquidate, maybe then I would be interested. But I don't know. I think waiting to see how the overall growth story plays out is a bit risky.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I last did those Seritage valuations, which I think was only in December or January or something, I then went in because I got questions like, what happens if the real estate market just falls apart? So I went in there and said, okay, what happens if real estate comes down 30% or something? And even then, I'm pretty sure I was getting liquidation values in the teens.
So did you read my, I think we talked about it in the chat, our group chat, but some of the properties being within malls and being these pretty terrible properties that are almost impossible to sell and almost impossible to rent out, which is part of the short thesis around Seritage. That's how I come across it. And that makes up about 30 to 40% of their real estate portfolio. It's these small box type real estate. How do you think about that? Because I'm assuming you valued them higher than what the short thesis would suggest, at least.
Yeah, so I think from memory there were 10 or 15 properties that I just couldn't get comps on because they are malls and they're not like the traditional Sears box with car parks around it and all that, which a lot of the properties are. I wouldn't think it was anywhere near 30% of the overall value. Yeah, I think it was 10 properties or something from memory.
Even the recent sales that
I'll
they've
pull up
gotten,
the
they're a
short
bit higher,
basis.
right, than what you got in your valuation. The recent Hawaii, I think.
Yeah, there's certainly been some that have come in a lot higher, others are lower. I mean, the simple pushback on that one would be they've got, there's no doubt that out of 170 properties, there's some in there that are going to be terrible and not that valuable. But they've got a handful that are extremely valuable, and like, you know, they've got individual properties that are probably worth more than the market cap now that's come down so much. Obviously, you got to factor in the debt and stuff as well. But, yeah, I would say that the current stock price is a long way from liquidation value, but of course, there's cash flow problems which could potentially be an issue.
Yeah, and it's a little concerning that management doesn't have much skin in the game.
True. I don't think we've ever seen management buy it in the open market, have we? I mean, there's I think it's about $1 million a year of Andrea Olshan's compensation as Seritage stock, but I don't know how meaningful that is for her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anything further on SRG, guys?
Well, I did. There's sort of a side note I wanted to mention. I think it was on Bill Brewster's podcast. You used Crexy, I think, to value those properties, right, Tom?
Mm-hmm.
So the CFO of Crexy was on Bill Brewster's podcast talking about Crexy and talking about how I think he prepared Coinbase to go public as well. And with Crexy, he's really thinking it's going to dominate the commercial real estate space. It was a fascinating interview. Recommended if you're interested in commercial real estate.
Yeah, it was a pretty good tool. I mean, that was a very time-consuming task, as you well know, Brad, to go through one by one on each property. But I don't know how I would have done it without something like Crexy. I don't know.
You had to drop a lot more on what is the big real estate valuation tool. I can't remember the name of it now, but
yeah,
Jack would know. Damn you, Jack.
All right. Anything further on Micron, or should we take some other questions?
Well, I say we jump around a little bit. What else do you guys see?
Well, this was a topic we'd considered talking about, so we might as well bring it up. Meta getting close to $150. Anyone interested?
Has anyone bought Meta recently? Or added or considered adding? Or
You mean super investors, or you mean us?
I mean, you guys.
Is that not the same thing, Brett?
That was a trick question, Karan.
I get the feeling that Frank's a big undercover Meta investor, but just he's too embarrassed to tell it.
He doesn't want to talk about
it. He's on mute. That's like he knows that anything he says, like, he doesn't want that to be out there in the public. Yeah.
I was on mute because my dog was barking, but definitely not a Meta investor.
Oh, okay, Meta options.
There you go. Michael Burry, I don't know if you guys saw, he went somewhat big on Meta in the last quarter. But who knows what that guy's doing, right? He's probably got more option stuff happening than actual straight up equity positions.
Yeah, he keeps deleting his Twitter and all that.
I think I made a little buy on Facebook a number of months ago, but I haven't done anything recently.
Now the truth comes out.
I just kind of dipped my toes in, Tom.
The closet Meta buyer.
See, I think we've got more than just Brad on the stream here that's closet Meta buyer.
You think? Who else would there be?
So. I think it's Frank. I think he just doesn't want to tell us. He keeps voting yes every time we talk about Meta for the portfolio.
That's true. That is true.
I'm voting yes over 2 companies in there that I just shake my head at every time I hear them.
Fair enough.
We got to
Actually,
have some
here's a good.
special situations, Frank, in the portfolio, right?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Do you want?
We got to have special situations in the portfolio.
I'd like to come across one.
You want Activision or something?
I'd prefer it. I'd take it over Seritage or Turtle Beach any day of the week.
Oh, what a hater!
Nothing there, man. Zig.
All right.
Let's get Zig in there.
Well, okay. Oh, you want to get Zig in there in the portfolio? Acquirers fund. Oh, it has Meta. Frank would love it.
Not sell it then. Don't touch that.
He's changed the structure of Zig, right? Recently, Tobias. He was on the
Yeah, no, it no longer shorts is what's
Yeah.
changed. So it
and
used
more
to be
active.
like, is it?
That's what he had mentioned in the podcast. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I did know that he ditched the short side. I thought that was close to a year ago now. I think it used to be like, I don't know, 120% long, 20% short, however that maths tends to work. And now it's just 100% long, I think. But I thought it was rebalanced quarterly still. Yeah, Manu's saying no more shorts, 30 longs only. So there you go. This one I'm keen to hear your thoughts on, Frank. Any price you'd be interested getting back into Redbubble? I think a previous holding of yours, right?
Yeah, that was a quick in and out one for me. No, and not unless management changed, then I wouldn't be interested. They were putting some pretty misleading numbers into investor presentations. They weren't executing as well as you would like, and it's continued that way ever since. So for me, probably not, unless there was a big shift in leadership.
Did Rosenblum get out of that as well?
He sold some. He trimmed
Gotcha.
when it was making up half of his portfolio to buy a few other things, but he still owns it. Still one of the bigger positions.
Okay.
So that's one of the stocks he's done really well with, right?
Probably not anymore. I think it'd be approaching his buying price
Right.
now. I think
Okay,
it was
it's down that
like
much.
it was a 3 or 4 bagger at least for him. I think. I'd have to see how much it's actually came down.
That was, I think, largely as a result of the pandemic that it shot up.
What price did
Yeah,
that comment say it was at?
Let's get a Redbubble stock chart up in here.
I don't think it said in the comment.
Oh wow, it's cheap. Yeah, it's about at his buying price because he bought
Dang.
during the pandemic as a bit of a pandemic play. So he wouldn't even be up much at all.
Yeah, if he bottom ticked it, 40%. That's pretty crazy. What happened? Margins fell off a cliff for some reason, didn't they?
I haven't followed it since I got out, but yeah, there was some short-term problems with the margins that could potentially be long-term. Again, I haven't followed that since, but I don't know exactly. Is the real answer?
Yeah.
Has there been anything on your watch lists that you guys have been interested in a little bit more with everything coming down?
Yeah, a little Massachusetts bank, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, it's mostly the stuff in my portfolio that's been interesting to me, the existing positions that I'm wanting to add to, including a little Massachusetts bank as well.
Yeah, I'm mainly looking at the stuff in Frank's portfolio at the moment. That's actually a pretty accurate representation of my watch list. Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, Berkshire is back down to
Is it
1.2 times
1.2
book or
book?
something. Yeah.
Around there.
Yeah, if you do the maths on it and assume that their stock portfolio is down 20% or something since they last reported, it's more expensive than that. That might be something you'd want to adjust for, but it's back down there.
Yeah. Amazon is starting to intrigue me a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's interesting. Even Google looks interesting. I know Jackson's pretty big into Google. We haven't got him this week. But yeah.
I think Justin's probably more interested in Carvana than anything else at this point. So
Yeah, there's been some insider buying I've been seeing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of tweets about that.
Right. I haven't verified it myself. That would be too much work.
Yeah. All right.
Is Jonathan our index guy? Is that who that is?
I think that's him. I love Jonathan. He's very he's consistent. If nothing else.
Yeah.
I appreciate this.
Got to respect that.
Yeah.
4 basis points. Just pay 4 basis points.
Yeah.
Low in the market.
I don't get someone who's interested in index funds as opposed to Berkshire. Like it doesn't make sense to me. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like buying the index versus just buying Berkshire?
I think Berkshire's, well, I don't know. I think it's a reasonably straightforward equation that do your own work on this, but Berkshire's growing faster and it's cheaper than the index, which tends to lead to better returns. And you'd have to argue that capital allocation at Berkshire is better than the average S&P 500 company.
I mean,
and Jonathan's got both, actually. Jonathan's got both.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay.
I like you even more now, Jonathan.
Well, it was interesting to watch the Ed Thorpe talk and how it sounded like he was just invested in the S&P, and I was very curious. I wish this was a follow-up question. How do you think about Berkshire versus the S&P 500? Because he bought Berkshire back when it was under $1,000 a share. I think it was in the early 80s. But it sounds like all he owns is the S&P now. So I wish that would have been asked. I don't know if you guys saw the Ed Thorpe talk. I know you did, Karan, but it's fantastic.
Is that the Tim Ferriss podcast?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I haven't listened yet, but I've got it downloaded, ready to go.
I guess part of the concern with Berkshire, right, is what happens after Buffett leaves.
Is that really a concern?
From what I've heard, for Berkshire shareholders, it is. Yeah.
I think more so as a really long-term investment. Like if we're talking 10 years, then fine, Berkshire seems probably more appealing than S&P. But the bulk of it is an energy business and an insurance business, and a portfolio that consists of pretty much just Apple. So I'm not bullish. I'm not bullish on energy long term.
Company, right? Some food
insurance is like a limited growth. Like maybe you see pretty good returns, but from that size, how much? I don't know. I could see why you would want to. If you're a 20, 30 year sit and hold until you retire type investor, I think you're better off in an index than Berkshire Hathaway to be safe.
But what about all the assets that the energy company controls? What about the transmission lines, the grid connections, everything? That's infrastructure that's going to be worth a lot more 20 years out. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
I should be clear. I'm not bearish on Berkshire Hathaway.
I'm just no, because
Frank just told us we won't need energy in 20 years.
Perpetual energy machines.
We'll all have them at our houses. Yeah. The energy business at Berkshire is quite interesting because they basically just earn a 10% regulated return, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty good, I would think. Yeah, I think it's reasonably clear what the management picture is likely to look like at Berkshire moving forward. I don't know. My 2 cents is that Ajit keeps running the insurance operations till he gets really ancient. We know Greg Abel's going to be the CEO, and then Ted and Todd are probably going to run the stock portfolio, right? I think that's effectively the outcome.
Sounds right.
Is that bad? Is that good? What are your thoughts on that? Does that cause people to shift from Berkshire to an index or something else?
Something that was very surprising was the fact that Mohnish said that Charlie thinks that in the long term, the insurance business is not going to be a big part of Berkshire.
That was surprising.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Do you guys have any
I
thoughts
wonder.
on that?
My question would be, what does he mean by long term? maybe he's talking about
50 years.
when his grandkids are 90 something. I don't know. All right. You guys want to take any other questions here?
I think with insurance, probably I think after seeing the impact of things in the last 2 years, the hit that insurance can take is probably there's a lot more risk with insurance as opposed to, say, with the energy asset or with the railroads. I think that's probably what Charlie's implying. It's not that the insurance business would decline, it would probably stagnate, and Berkshire Hathaway Energy would grow to the point where it would diminish everything else. That's how I see it, at least.
You mean that the insurance is riskier because of what? Super catastrophe type stuff?
Well, yes, that's probably one thought that they have now that they didn't have probably 5 years ago, I think. And also, it's like he mentioned, it's just a difficult business to run, right? Insurance. So, and just the prospects of the Berkshire Hathaway Energy business are, in my opinion, they're fantastic. So I think that's pretty much what's going to be driving the company moving forward.
You know what's been the best performing part of the Berkshire Hathaway Energy business for the last decade?
Is it solar?
No, it's their BYD investment.
BYD, yeah.
Because for some reason that lives in the Berkshire Hathaway Energy portfolio rather than the
I
core
thought that was
Berkshire
part
stock
of
portfolio.
the insurance business.
No. If you look up the shareholder registry for BYD, it says Berkshire Hathaway Energy, and it used to say MidAmerican Energy, but they renamed to Berkshire a couple of years ago. And at the time, I think David Sokol was the previous manager of when it was MidAmerican, and Berkshire had an 80% interest in MidAmerican at the time, and for whatever reason, that's where the capital went to go into BYD.
Well, Pabrai talked about that in the interview with William Green. He said,
"Yeah, I think that's where I heard that."
Buffett didn't want to put up his own capital for it, so he instructed MidAmerican to take a position in BYD.
So random. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's pretty unusual. I think if I ever got to ask Buffett a question, maybe that's what I'd ask him. Is how does he decide which portfolio buys a particular stock? Because I think when we see their 13F, some of the that's a collection of various different portfolios. I think because there was a S&P 500 ETF randomly popped into their 13F 2 years ago, maybe, which everyone thought was pretty weird. And it turned out it was a holding within Geico for some reason, some of their float just got allocated to that. Be interesting to see how that all sort of works and why you'd allocate from the main portfolio versus MidAmerican or Geico or something else.
Could be compliance or something.
Yeah, maybe. Not sure. What other questions you guys want to tackle? Another stock that's been in my watch list forever that's popped up again recently. Someone put in a comment about Monster right down somewhere, but it just reminded me of the company Monster Beverage. Unrelated to what that comment was probably trying to say. I see Monster has still not really gotten any cheaper. It's mid 30 times earnings or something. But I see they've just launched their first alcoholic product, which is interesting. That seems to me like something that would do well for a Monster. I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
Did they just put vodka in it? Is that, I don't know if this is an Australian thing, but vodka Red Bulls is a big drink.
Oh
At
yeah, just
nightclubs
put
over here.
alcohol in my energy drink. That's what I want.
Is that an Australian thing only, or what?
That's definitely a New Zealand thing as well.
No, we don't have that here.
We do the Jägermeister Red Bulls. Is that a thing in
Yeah,
Australia?
that's a thing. Yep.
Is that American as well? No,
It's a terrible idea, Tom.
it's called a Jaeger bomb.
Jaeger bomb.
Jaeger bomb.
Yeah,
We do have Jaeger bombs.
you do have Jaeger bombs.
Yeah.
Or they do. You can also get. I think it's vodka and cranberry Red Bulls. Is that a thing in Australia or the US? Those are actually pretty nice.
It might be. I haven't had one.
That's
I
like
think A2 milk. Yeah, A2 milk might start doing well if they start, selling vodka instead.
Yeah, you do have to market that quite separate from their infant formula products, I've heard, but it might work
for the kids and for you, twin packs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, you want to stop breastfeeding because you feel like drinking? Have we got the solution for you? There we go.
Boy.
We've gone off topic. What else have we got? Apparently Coke have started doing alcohol for the first time, rum and Coke cans.
Wow.
Be concerned about the quality of rum that goes into that, personally.
Maybe next year we'll see that on the table. What do you guys think?
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
What else have we got?
With Charlie, he'll have a wraparound, but it'll peel off and it'll be actually rum and Coke.
Maybe that's what he's already got. We just don't know.
Possible.
Anything's possible.
That's right.
Are you guys expecting anything from the next 13F season? Any big names?
How far away are we?
Pop up?
Still got a little while, right?
We still got a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah, 2 months.
I'd be surprised if we don't see a lot of money thrown around by Berkshire. We already did, I guess, but I think this is typical Buffett investment territory.
Yeah.
And it might be the last hurrah. So I think throughout the year, we'll see a lot of money move around there.
It's been the last hurrah many times in the past.
Yeah, I probably would have said that 20 years ago if I got asked, but
yeah, it is actually hilarious reading some of the old Berkshire write-ups on Value Investors Club. Actually, I read Mohnish Pabrai's old Berkshire write-up yesterday. Just I don't know, out of interest. And yeah, there was a comment about Buffett's getting old. He's like 75 or something, which is so young compared to where he's at now.
It's insane to think that two 90-year-olds actually are they're well young, so much younger than they seem. It's insane. A 90-year-old should be passing out in a bed, barely moving, and they're running one of the biggest companies in America and investing very well still.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think this time's Buffett lunch is going to be the last one that he's getting off, right?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I sometimes think about Brett Kelly and who's 52 or something. I think he's young. And I always consider how long until his retirement, because that would be concerning. But if he's anything like Buffett, we've got another 45 years or so. We're only halfway there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about 52 at this point.
Yeah. Who's Brett Kelly? I'm just kidding. I think he's got COVID at the moment. I saw on his Instagram. Hopefully he's feeling better. You guys got any other topics coming through in the comments here you wanna talk about?
There's a couple of questions about Activision.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Activision as a bit of an arbitrage situation, I guess.
I haven't looked at it.
I don't know. I mean, is an arbitrage situation as attractive considering you've got, well, so many other potential investments?
Right.
Depends on the type of investor you are, I guess. I think as a more short term, if you're kind of bearish about what the market looks like over the next 12 months, then maybe some of these arbitrage bets, these merger arbitrages could be interesting. At least it's a yield you can get if the market keeps going down. But as a long-term investor, then probably not.
Yeah. I think I'd want to know more about Activision itself and what you'd be left holding if the deal fell over. I don't think I'm there yet on that one.
I was looking at Activision maybe a year or so ago, maybe more now actually. It does seem like a good business, and historically it's been a very good business. But obviously it had some issues with management, which is why it kind of got cheap in the first place, and probably why there was a deal struck, or at least partly why. So how much that changes things of what was a good business, I don't know. But you're definitely not left with a terrible business by any measure. There's a lot of strong IP and appeal moving forward, at least.
Yeah. And you think it's undervalued here? Like if the deal fell over, you'd still be in at a reasonable price, or not sure?
I think it'd be a reasonable price at least. I don't know whether it's cheap. I'd have to do more work to really determine that, but I don't think it's overvalued by any measure.
Yeah. Because I think if I was to get involved in one of those situations, that would kind of be the setup I'd want to see. Like, it's a good business at a reasonable price. You know, maybe I make a quick 20% or whatever. If I don't, you know, I'm comfortable with the returns I'll get over the next several years anyway. I actually, I may have mentioned it on a previous stream, but I actually tried to do that with what's the one that's smaller than a micro cap? Is that a nano cap?
Nano cap, yeah.
I did that with a nano cap oyster company, where I was looking to do it at the start of the year sometime.
What is that, actually, like under 50 million or something?
I think the market cap was about 20 million at the time I was looking at it. I was kind of in the final stages of my research, or pretty far through it. And then they announced a deal and the stock shot up 50% before I managed to get into it. And another YouTuber who will go unnamed that I was talking to about it at the time, he had actually bought a small position in it, like literally 2 days or something before the deal got announced, and suddenly made 50% in like 2 weeks, or in like 2 days. So that was one I would like to have done, but I don't think the spread got wide enough for me on that one.
Should we tackle one more question?
Yeah, let's do one more. What do you want to take?
Do you want to take the Andrew Rogers question? What do you guys think is the best company in the world?
Oh.
And I think we should clarify that. Let's go best company, not best investment opportunity, just the highest quality company out there today, regardless of the stock price.
Do we mean economically the best company, like, you know, high returns on capital? Do we
Whatever
mean
makes
one
it a
we
good
like the
company.
most?
Do they mean public company? That's also a factor.
What if we reframed it as, if the price was right, what's the company you want to buy the most? If the price was right.
It's a different
Again,
question.
public equities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would we like to ride off into the sunset with?
Because like Capital IQ seems like a fantastic business, but it's not public. So.
I think it's hard to go past Google. It stands out, but I don't know. I think probably one of the best companies in the world is Google right now. Nothing to do with valuation and nothing to do with the long-term prospects either. I think growth is probably limited just due to the size. That might prove to be very wrong. We'll see, but it's definitely one of the higher quality companies in the world, at least.
And in what way?
Every single way, just the amount of cash that they can generate.
Every single possible way.
Mostly in the sense that it's just a print cash, essentially. It's got a huge cash bar.
Right.
It prints a lot of cash. It doesn't have to do much to grow. Every part of their business is just exceptional, and will be around for at least a decade or more.
Yeah.
Management is great, but almost irrelevant, I think.
Yeah. I think our friend James likes Google as well.
I would put Tencent up there, but a lot of Amazon's getting thrown around in there too. Visa,
I'm surprised
MasterCard.
no one considers Unilever or P&G or any of those sort of consumer businesses. I think they're pretty robust. They control so much more than we realize. Yeah.
How about we reword this to say, what company do you think is most likely to still be here in 100 years?
Ooh.
Oh, that's hard.
What's the most durable company in the world?
I think Unilever. I think those companies. Yeah. Unilever would probably be around 100 years out.
You think Apple's going to be around in 100 years?
No. Oh, maybe, but not to the same extent. It could be doing something completely different.
Yeah.
No.
Some of these big companies like Google and Apple in 100 years might look much more like a Unilever or something, some kind of simple consumer type thing, but who knows?
Imagine if there's just no innovation, and if smartphones are even still a thing in 100 years, and you get the new iOS update on your phone in 100 years, and you have to scroll for 10 minutes to get to old photos that you took 80 years ago. That'd be pretty crazy. If the ecosystem's that durable.
You guys, smartphones will be gone in 20 years. You heard it here first.
Someone clip that.
What are they going to be replaced with?
Glasses.
Just pulls out anything you can think of.
I mean, Frank's already got him. He's in VR right now.
Yeah. He's got weird Snapchat filters or something on us, so we all look funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna go McDonald's. I think McDonald's will be here in 100 years.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Probably.
That's sad.
Walmart or something.
That's
Costco.
sad. Yeah, you think Costco's still going to be here?
The supermarkets can't disappear, right? Even if they do, Walmart's got to be a play and whatever
Wait.
replaces it.
I've got a Texas Roadhouse.
Guys, do you think Alibaba will be around 100 years? Because they're the only company that I've heard says we want to be around for 102 years.
Oh, right.
So
100
yeah.
years is just so unknowable. It's just
but that's the
insane.
only company that's out there, said this is our goal. I don't think there's any other company that said that.
I think Nintendo talk about because they've been around for. Oh, is it Nintendo? Another Japanese company, maybe. No, I think it's Nintendo. They've been around 100 years, and they say they're going to be here 100 more or something.
Was that because they hoard cash and can't possibly go bankrupt?
Ooh, zing.
I don't know. That's like the stereotypical Japanese
I
company, but I've
understand.
heard Nintendo's a little more aggressive than that.
Well, that's a
Not
good
really,
research
David.
project. Which companies, say in their annual report that they plan to be here 100 years from now?
Yeah. I guess something that can't go away would be like land. If you found some farm type company.
But they could sell. They
That
could
had
just.
no debt.
Easily.
They could liquidate.
Yeah.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, but
Coke was not a bad suggestion. Whoever said that.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about what about ExxonMobil? They're going to be here in 100 years.
Well,
They're
the
gonna
amount
have
of
to
money
pay
they're
for it.
making now, like with the amount of money they're making now, they can be here for 200 years. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if they need to be making Dogecoin instead of dollars though to survive? They might not be able to spend US dollars in 100 years.
Will Dogecoin be here in 100 years?
Oh, definitely. Did you guys hear about the whole thing that Elon's getting sued for?
Yeah, I've
The
read
whole
that. I
Doge-
didn't know if it was real or not.
I don't know if that's real. Yeah.
That guy's getting sued most days, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys? Okay, prediction. So when we're doing our punch card stream in the year 2122 in 100 years time, because we'll have such good medical care by then. We'll be
So
fine.
we're gonna
We probably
outlive Buffett and Munger.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't even remember what I was going to ask. Oh yeah, I was going to say, what do you think? The market cap of Dogecoin is in the year 2122?
0.
It's either zero.
How
or
many
like,
zeros after the one? How many?
Yeah, it's either 0 or like 50 trillion, isn't it? In 100 years, after a bit of inflation.
Oh boy.
Brad, are you still holding on to that little bit that you bought?
I don't remember. I think not. No, I think I sold it. Yeah. Okay.
And
We
on that
should
note-
wrap.
On that bombshell.
That note.
We'll see you guys next week. All right.
What are we
What are we
talking
gonna talk
Repeat.
about next week, guys? Because actually, just before we go, one of the things we always struggle with is coming. So what happens when we finish these live streams, everyone, is we sit there for like a good 5, 10, 20 minutes saying, what should we talk about next week? And we can never decide or have any ideas. So if you guys have topic ideas and want to put them in the chat, that would be much appreciated. And then
Another thing we should do is we have a punch card Twitter account, right?
No,
I
that's
don't
just
think
a
so.
group.
I was going to
We
say,
don't
did
have
we?
a-
I don't know about
we
that.
don't.
Yeah, I don't follow them if we
Never
do.
mind. Never mind.
Okay.
We can set
someone
up a punch
impersonating
card
us?
Twitter if
Yeah. If someone wants to turnarounds and restructurings,
There it is.
should we talk about that? Does anyone know anything about turnarounds or restructurings?
I like a good turnaround and restructuring.
I think we're learning about a good turnaround restructuring with Seritage, like in real time. We're learning about it.
A good one?
Are we assuming it's a turnaround?
I don't know. At this
You
point.
Remains
guys-
to be seen.
You guys got to believe.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you all next week. Thank you for watching.